Glad to have you back. President Bola Tinubu highlighted key economic indicators in his speech, noting easing inflation, a rebound in oil and gas sector with the rig activity quadrupling since 2021 and fresh investment topping $8 billion. He introduced a new fiscal policy framework to ensure fair taxation, responsible borrowing, disciplined spending, including creation of a tax omnibusman to safeguard taxpayers. Well, let's stay with tax policies and expected signing into law of the tax bills. It's before the president now, but has been taken to the Attorney General, which is what does this mean for the economy and the ordinary man on the street? My guest is a chartered accountant and lead consultant at lead consultant CEO, 2612 Consulting Services, Mr. Peter Adebayo. Mr. Adebayo, thank you so much for coming through. It's good to have you live in the studio.
Yeah, thank you once again, Tolu. When I got here, I never knew I was still in Nigeria.
Thank you so much. Everyone gives us that commendation. Thank you so much. Yeah. We appreciate this.
Thank you.
Well, let me get your understanding first about we'll be doing an assessment of President Bola Tinubu's 2 year in office, and I'm sure you've been following up with his moves, particularly around the tax space and, of course, finance and tax space. What is your role understanding, and where do you think we are, particularly with these special bills that we expect to be passed into law anytime soon?
Yeah, thank you very much once again, Tolu. Discussions around the tax bills have dominated the scene, over the period. I think a very comfortable platform to flag up this discussion is to, briefly look at the background, of the journey so far. It's no more news. Sometimes of course, when President Bola Tinubu came on board, he had to set up the Presidential Task Force, the Presidential Fiscal Policy, stroke tax reform committee headed by Taiwo Oyedele, and he gave them a specific mandate. And sometimes in October 2024, yes, the bills were transmitted by the president to the National Assembly.
Yes.
Of course, the bills, the Nigerian Tax Bill, the Nigerian Tax Administration Bill, the Nigerian Revenue Service Establishment Bill, and the Joint Revenue Board Bill, with all the objectives, which include modernizing Nigerian tax system, in line with what is happening at the international scene, streamlining of tax collection processes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at Nigerian tax system, a lot of people have complained these days, double taxation problem, multiple taxation problems. These are some of the things that the reform is meant to address for greater efficiency and, of course, high level of effectiveness. It's also meant to achieve a fiscal governance. Fiscal governance is also expected to foster some degree of revenue generation and transformation, to consider adjustment, of the tax rate, in a manner that will bring about equity, in a manner that will bring about fairness, and of course, generally to facilitate sustainable, inclusive growth and transformation in our economy generally. So, a lot of credit must be given to our lawmakers, because our lawmakers believe that these reforms from day one are quite essential for Nigeria's economic growth and revenue generation. So they did not allow, the bills to be killed, quote and unquote. What do I mean by that, Tolu? They didn't allow the bills to be thrown away. Otherwise, there have been bills in the past, after the first and second reading, those bills are not going to be allowed to pass beyond that level. All right, of course, realities. And experiences over the years have actually shown and convinced us that not all the bills that pass through the So, of course, however, one thing is imminent. It's on record that in the course of this journey, criticisms emanated, oppositions erupted, castigations, whatever, insinuations, of different dimensions, condemnations, these are things that are actually ensued, from various quarters. But the interesting aspect of it, for me, I think they continue to reshape the entire legislative process, thereby making it more dynamic. Of course, I see all of this as what? As a positive development as far as we are concerned, and this underscores and buttresses the transparency and integrity entire legislative process.
Now that we have gotten to this point, and the argument is that making it streamlining this tax laws, you know, we used to have plenty of them at that point. What are your thoughts with the positives? What should we be expecting? That's what Nigerians really want to listen to. For small businesses, those of us that won't pay taxes, we are interested in knowing that. You know what I'm talking about?
You know, you see, when it comes to the benefits of these tax laws, quite frankly, they are numerous. Numerous. We have discussed them, you know, across different segments, you know. You just said there as an individual, you know, a new regime of tax table is going to come in, you know, with the signing of this into law.
Yes.
By the time we start implementing.
Yes.
And you discover that it is possible for someone, under the present circumstance now, even when the minimum wage was 30,000, you know, the minimum wage earners will be exempted from tax by virtue of that's minimum wage. If somebody earns 30,500 naira, you will discover that the person by virtue of earning more than the minimum wage pays tax that will deflate his disposable income. At the end of it all right, he earns less than somebody who has. So what's the difference between 30,000 and 30,500? So that is for even the individuals. For business world, you know, I mean, we have said this several times. Those who presently are running businesses that are 25 million and below.
Yes.
You know, like we said, they will have they enjoy the privilege of not paying company income taxes by virtue of the Finance Act. But in this dispensation that we're about to enter, in this new regime, in fact, 25 million is not even going to be the benchmark. If you do 50 million turnover and below, as a way of encouraging that business sector to grow, you are not going to be paying CIT to government, all right? For those youth, you know, digital aspect of it, quite a number of all of this. Even the present rate of taxes for big organizations, we stand at 30% presently. You know, there are three dimensions. If you earn, if you do 25 million and below, you don't pay anything. If you earn up to 25 and 100, you pay 20%. Above 100, you pay 30%. Even that 30% has been recommended to be paid and reduced to 25%. All of this, you know, attempts to ensure that at least, you know, there are benefits arising from these new laws.
You see, many times we talk about tax to GDP ratio. I've had that argument for God knows how long, many years, that how do we also get to strengthen and improve that?
I think we are not doing badly, because if you look at years back, our tax to GDP ratio was ridiculously low, all right? I mean, particularly in the days when we had reliance predominantly on oil. And you look at it in recent times, over the years, I mean, the trajectory is changing. I mean, if you look at over the past 5 years now, you look at the trend, you know, of increasing our revenue generation capacity through taxation. I mean, going back to 2021, in 2021, I think if you look at our budget 2021, I think it was maybe about 13.59 trillion. In 2022, it increased from 13.5 trillion to about, I think 17-something trillion. In 2023, from 17 trillion, I think it increased to about 21 point something trillion. 2024, we had I think about 27 trillion. And this year, you know, we are talking about 54 trillion. So when you look at the quantum of the tax that we are earning now, you know that it is a major improvement over what we've had, you know, in the previous years. So if we can pay attention to this and sustain the momentum, I do not have any doubt, you know, that tax will continue to play a very significant role in our revenue generation, and with particular emphasis on our GDP.
I'll take you on from that point, because I know we've had discussions many times where you try to advise government or, you know, give your views with regards to how revenues can be raised. That's, you know, outside. Because now crude oil prices not doing very well. Donald Trump is not resting on his oars. He's hitting every day, drill. So you know what that means for us. So if that continues, what are your thoughts again around revenue? You know, it's something that when we look at our budget and what we expect, the assumptions, I'm personally worried. So I don't know what you're thinking. You are in the finance space.
Quite frankly, Tulu, whether we like it or not, even if what we are facing arising from the oil stuff had not been there, I still will advocate any day that we can afford to be dependent on one or two sources of revenue. All right? Now, fuel, you know the issues that are around fuel now. And you know, I mean, the American,
yes.
the Donald Trump factor.
Yeah.
It's so that rekindling the necessity for us to rejig our strategy and make sure that we spread our tentacles of revenue generation. And that still takes me to diversification. I've said it over time. You know, there are ample opportunities for us beyond oil, beyond tax. We can generate a lot from oil. We can generate a lot from tax. But outside of tax, outside of oil, there are agriculture. I've said this here several times to do. Agriculture is also there. If we pay attention to agriculture, agriculture alone has what it takes to generate what tax is generating. Agriculture has what it takes to generate what oil is generating. Apart from all of this, we still have our solid minerals are there. Solid minerals are there. Apart from solid minerals, we also have, okay, the mining, all of these things that are there, you know, unfortunately, like we have said it here sometimes ago when we were talking about the issue of illegal mining. Why are we talking about the issue of illegal mining? We're talking about illegal mining because we're not doing what we ought to do. Because ordinarily speaking, yes, if we do what we're supposed to do, there shouldn't be any issue of illegal mining. In other words, revenues that are supposed to accrue to the federation are, you know, somehow finding their ways into individual pockets, you know, thereby constituting leakages, you know, in a financial system or revenue generation system as a nation. So that's even mining. I mean, what about I mentioned tourism sometimes ago. Yeah, there are nations of the world today that they generate a huge sum of revenue from tourism. I mean, look at all the tourist centers across Nigeria. You know, Yankari Game Reserve, Tinapa. Sometimes ago we had Tinapa. Only God knows what has happened to Tinapa now. Tinapa has what it takes. When people travel to France, all of these, what are all those tourist centers in France? What do I mean? You know, I've forgotten the name. You know, you travel to Dubai, you travel all these things. It's because they take time to develop all of these things and translate them from, you know, what they used to be to revenue. So I think we can do a lot more, you know, by trying to diversify objectively, you know, our revenue generation base. I mean, look at 2024. You know, our tax, our budget was 27.5.
27.5.
Yes, of course, before the supplementary budget of 6 trillion.
6 trillion.
That increases about 33 trillion of thereabout. Yeah. Now, look at what we are projected this year. When people said from 27 or from 33 trillion to 57, that's too ambitious. I don't see it as being ambitious. I have said this several times, Tolu. I don't want to do it. By the time you translate it, $54, it's a fragment of the expenditure profile in the U.S. economy. So, which means even the 54 trillion we are talking about as our budget is still too small for the size of it. There's nothing in that makes it difficult or impossible for Nigeria today to do what? To target a revenue of 150 trillion. It is achievable, quite frankly. You know, but then, I know it's gradually. If you are going to be able to do 57, 54 this year, hopefully I'm trusting God that even though debt is still there, I mean, we've talked about debt.
Yeah, debt is there.
The only thing that can help us from deviating from debt, we can't run away from debt completely. But at the same time, gradually, we can begin to build more capacity that will enhance our revenue generation. You know, and as we are building capacity to enhance our revenue generation through diversification, you'll agree with me that gradually, our borrowing capacity, you know, will be reducing, you know, on a yearly basis. But I think with this finance, the tax bills. Yes. Then now, I believe that you know, there are a lot of promises, you know, that will impact positively.
A lot of work has gone into that really, honestly. And you've talked about the expectations. We've talked about all of it. I'm just seeing how it becomes law, and we just get started and, you know, start to see how it starts to trickle down. Honestly, what more are you thinking around President Bola Tinubu's administration moving forward? You
know, the good news now is that, you know, sharing news, you know, the harmonization has been done now.
Yes.
By both the Senate
and the House of Reps.
So that's good news. Now, after the harmonization, you know, they were to harmonize the areas of differences and areas of concerns.
Yes.
That has been successfully and comfortably done.
Yes.
And that means that led to the passage of that into the president, which I will call the final phase, you know, in the legislative process. You know, what he needs to just do now is to put his signature, you know, as an icing of the cake. You know, I mean, you just told me now that it has been passed to the Chief Justice or
Attorney General.
Attorney General.
Yes, I think that's where it is now.
You know, so that by the time they look at it, of course, before he signs, he's not going to sign just like that. You know, but then beyond signing, the question is, what next? All right? Now, a lot is has been put into this thing. And I think at this stage, quite frankly, a lot of kudos, and commendations must be given, to the committee, because Tolu, it's been a very rough journey.
Honestly.
It's been a rough journey. It's been a very tough journey. And because, like I mentioned, they have been very dogged. I salute their doggedness. I salute their courage. I salute their dedication. I salute their commitment. I salute their tenacity, and of course, their non-relenting spirit in spite of, the various controversies that trailed, the process, in spite of the criticisms that, accompany the tax bills.
Yes.
Some of those criticisms, if they are constructive, you don't have any problem.
Yeah.
Some of those criticisms, they were not born out of objectivity, but out of subjectivity and out of obvious bias. You understand what I'm saying? All right? And the ignorance on the part of some of those critics. But, out of in all of this, all right? Of course, they face castigations. A lot of people, for those of us, some people will say, you are Taiwo's friend. No, because you are always supporting Taiwo. I'm not supporting Taiwo. I'm supporting Taiwo because he's doing it's a very tough job for anybody to do.
Very tough.
That's why I think they must be given the accolade, because they remain undaunted, along the line. They didn't surrender to all these antagonistic tendencies.
Yeah. They didn't.
Quite a number of things. So, and I think they deserve a kudos. Of course, apart from the committee, I think the National Assembly also they deserve a kudos, because the National Assembly also, because they believe in it, they worked on it, and in spite of all odds, they made sure that they didn't throw it into the bin. Of course, we cannot but commend the efforts of the various advocacy group, the experts, the professionals, who at one time or the other, they contributed. But the next thing is what happens by the time the president appends his signature. That's $1 million question.
And we'll have the conversation after that time, I'm sure we'll have it.
Definitely.
Mr. Peter Adebayo, that's our time. I must thank you so much. Interesting conversation, just like I had with Dr. Nidikpe. There's never enough time on television, but I must thank you really for coming through to the studio. It's something we really appreciate. We don't take it for granted. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Tolu, before I go.
Go ahead, please. 1 minute.
These things will be, by the time the president signs,
yes,
I will call upon all stakeholders.
Yes, please.
Administrators, taxpayers, and practitioners to work in synergy. Synergy of purpose, synergy of dedication, synergy of objectives, synergy of commitment towards ensuring that everybody knows and understands the content of this. There is this Latin phrase that says ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So by the time everybody understands the context, there will be misunderstanding is eliminated. Where misunderstanding of the concept is eliminated, misinterpretation is eliminated. And when misinterpretation is eliminated, automatically misapplication is by the grace of God, by the time the president signs, we'll come back and discuss further on the way forward. So thank you once again, Tolu, for having me in your studio.
Mr. Peter Adebayo, Chartered Accountant, Lead Consultant, CEO of 2612 Consulting Services. Thank you so much. He's a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. I forgot to add that. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
Being on the program.
My fellow.
Yeah, she's doing very well.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's good to have you here on the show. Thank you, Mr. Adebayo. Well, yeah, we're still going to have another conversation now around the market figure.